Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, episode 21. I'm your host, Jacob Ayers. Today our guest is Dr. Brian Robbins. Before entering the multifamily investment arena, Dr. Robbins owned a number of companies, including multiple medical practices, a coffee shop, a 1,500-member gym, and a number of real estate investments. These real estate investments included a small apartment complex, a 32,000 square foot retail shopping center, which houses his medical practice, and a number of single-family properties. Dr. Robbins received a congressional nomination to attend West Point Military Academy, but his lifelong passion for baseball led him to accept a collegiate baseball scholarship. He and his wife Anita live on a farm in South Central Virginia, where they have raised 10 children, including 8 that were adopted. Dr. Robbins is now fully committed to helping other people reach their financial goals using the Wellings Capital multifamily wealth generation platform. Today I welcome on the show Dr. Brian Robbins. Brian, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Jacob.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show. We certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So, Brian, could you tell us a little bit about how you got started investing in real estate and what drew you to investing in the first place?
Sure. As a physician, there's only so much you can do in one day. There's only so many patients that you can see in one day. And I finally figured out that after doing this for a while, that while I do make a good income and I do support my family, I wasn't, making up ground as fast as I would like to. You're kind of behind the 8 ball when it comes to investing as a physician because you've got such an extended educational experience, as many years as you are in school. You just kind of start the whole game late. And so I was looking for ways, initially I started off and I had my clinic and then I started another clinic and then I had another clinic and I realized it was just killing me on time and it wasn't, they weren't all they were cracked up to be. They seemed to, produce a little profit, but it wasn't worth the time effort. And I just got involved in real estate because I got interested in really not having to leverage my own personal time, but I was looking for an asset that was safe. I had lost some money in the markets before, and I think most physicians have a big target on their back when it comes to scams and different bad investments. And I certainly had been involved in a couple where people were trying to take advantage of us. And I just found that real estate was really stable, and I just really like to be able to go and visit, to go see, touch, and feel my investment. And it's better than a piece of stock paper, a little column, an electronic blurb that says, "Oh, you own a share of such and such." Well, I can go and I can visit any building I have, any house I have, whichever real estate it is. I can enjoy my land. I can, so there's lots of things that I just really like about having. If there's a downturn in the economy, as long as I didn't leverage myself too heavily. My investment's still going to be there when things start to turn around. People always need a place to live, and it's an evergreen business. And so the safety and just being able to not eat up my time were the 2 main factors that got me involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on having the tangible asset that you can go out and touch, paint, feel, see. It's there. You can understand it. You have a better grasp for it than, like you said, that piece of paper that just says, "Hey, you own a piece of stock." So yeah, completely understand that. So you've done a lot of things from owning your own medical practices. You've had a coffee shop, a gym, and some commercial real estate. How have you kind of found your path into residential real estate?
Well, a friend of mine who's now my partner, we had been talking back and forth about different ideas, and he had a little bit more of a tolerance for risk than I did, and he had done a little bit of this and a little bit of that. He was always coming to me with these ideas and wanting me to invest with him, and he'd done everything from oil wells to man camps in North Dakota to pretty much you just name it. He's definitely an entrepreneur, and some of them, those things hit really big, some of them belly flopped, but he finally came across an idea with regards to multifamily investing, and he and I then ended up looking at it very closely, and we eventually decided that, hey, because of the risk reward ratios with regards to multifamily properties, and the low risk but the high reward if you do it right, we decided to get involved. We decided to try to get involved in a big way, and so we began to search out some mentors and to look at some training programs. And really it was because of my partner that he was the one that first kind of put it in front of me, and then we made the decision together to pursue it.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you've been working in the medical industry as a chiropractor for quite some time now. That industry, just in general, when I think about it, I think long hours, lots of work, especially owning your own practices, multiple locations. Sounds like a lot of time devoted just to that. So how'd you find time on the side to, start learning about real estate and getting started with it?
I've always looked at, I have friends that have hobbies that cost them a lot of money. They spend a lot of money on toys and jet skis and boats and all those things. And I always wanted my hobby to be something that would either pay me a dividend of some type, whether it be educational or whether it be it would produce income. So my hobby is really was how I kind of got started in real estate. So I just took the time that I had that I would have normally spent out doing something that was entertaining, and I just used that as my time to educate myself in real estate. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, certainly. There's some hobbies out there that are liabilities rather than assets, as Robert Kiyosaki would deem them.
Exactly.
So, Brian, can you talk a little bit about what you're working on now and some of your current projects?
Well, sure. We are. Well, I guess we could talk about my book. I'm currently writing a book, and some of the motivation for my book was some of my own experience with a failure in my first really big commercial real estate deal, and also then it kind of spawned some ideas with regards to the things that physicians are going through. And so the name of my book it's going to be published here hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're in the editing process right now, but the name of the book is Done: The Professional's Guide to Double-Digit Returns, Multi-Generational Wealth, and a Worry-Free Retirement. It's kind of a mouthful, but it does kind of summarize what I'm shooting for in this book. And it's really just, I guess, kind of helping physicians get their head around the frustration that they feel. A recent poll of physicians showed that 51% of all physicians would not choose this field again. And that's a sad state of affairs when more than half of your physicians just want to get out. Most of the guys that are my contemporaries, my age group, they're trying to find any way they can to get out of healthcare because it's not what they got. When we signed up, when we were young, we were looking for a way to help people. We were looking for a way to really, affect people's lives. And now it's really just become this paperwork nightmare. We spend more time on government mandated minutia and jumping through hoops and kind of going through that than we do actually caring for patients. And when the focus of our day is not on the patient's needs, but it's on fulfilling government mandated paperwork, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So really the book is just a treatise on how to generate some income for yourself, how to begin to create a wealth building engine that will produce enough income for you to, if you want to get out, if you want to stay in, because it's something you love and you love treating patients, you can do that. So it's kind of how to have your cake and eat it too. But I guess the core of the book is talking about how multifamily investing can kind of be the engine that shoots the rocket, as it were, in this situation. But that's really kind of what my biggest project right this minute, and I've been spending a whole heck of a lot of time on that over the last 6 to 8 months now.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that a little more. So it sounds like you've got a very specific target audience in medical professionals, but I think the same could be true for other industries, attorneys, engineers, almost anyone, it seems. I recently heard some statistic that said over 50% of attorneys were medically or clinically depressed. And my background's in engineering, and I know many people who are, wanting to get out of the rat race and, work for themselves and be self-employed. And so maybe that book could, have an effect on other industries as well.
Well, absolutely. In fact, I wrote it with that in mind. I did, in the title to say the professional's guide, and that's really kind of, I took physicians as for instance, my big idea, but it applies to attorneys, it applies to engineers, it applies to small business owners, dentists, chiropractors, physical therapists, anybody that really wants to change their future, anybody that wants to really take a hard look at multifamily investing. And it's really kind of written in everyday language. When you start to get involved with commercial real estate, if you ever talk to a broker or anybody that's on the inside, they have their own language. I don't know if you've really noticed that, Jacob, but it's like they just talk in this
Yes, certainly. There's a lot of jargon.
Yeah, there's a lot of jargon, and if you don't learn that jargon, then you kind of look like the newbie. That's for sure. But this is a book that talks about, okay, how do you get involved in commercial real estate? How do you do you want to do it on your own? Do you want to pick a sponsor to help you? Do you want it just kind of talks about how do you pick a city, how do you pick a location, how do you pick a market, a sub-market, what do you look for when you target a specific property? It really kind of breaks it down into all those individual steps. And for the person who's just getting started, I guess it's just a good beginner's course.
Yeah, great. So it sounds like you're urging people to follow in your footsteps and see the light you've recently seen, and kind of get out of the rat race and start building passive income on the side. So great.
Yeah, it does that. It also talks about how to avoid being a target for. When I first got involved, my first big deal I mentioned earlier was. I bought a strip center that I moved my medical office into. We were outgrowing our current place, and so I talked to my accountant, who had been my accountant for a long time, and was a friend as well. And apparently, though, one of his other clients had a big strip center that was for sale, and I really leaned heavily on him because I didn't know that much about commercial real estate at the time, and I made some mistakes. I got involved in a project that I should have never been in the first place. And I found out that they were much better friends than I was with my accountant. And so I kind of got steered wrong. So in one of the chapters, I talk a lot about that. How do you find professionals that you can trust? How do you, avoid making the big mistake that I made and kind of reaching for that pie in the sky and just staying conservative, staying within, what your financing levels are, and not making that big mistake that'll really come back and bite you down the road. So that was another focus of the book as well.
Yeah. So can we nail down a little bit about that retail center that you bought and what that deal looked like and how it ended up?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I was in the process of I was growing rapidly. We had the medical business. And then we had medical doctors, chiropractors, and physical therapists. And we did a lot of rehab with folks that were having back pain, neck pain. And in the rehab process, we actually had a lot of gym equipment. And so folks would get to feel a heck of a lot better after they got through the program. And then they wouldn't want to continue working out. And there really wasn't a good gym in our town. And so we ended up buying a little gym to mix with this group of patients that wanted to keep working out. And so we had this pretty rapidly growing athletic club that we were developing. And so my accountant mentioned that he had a client that needed to sell this strip center, and they hadn't even completed it yet. There was two guys that were partners, and they were not getting along very well, and so they sold it to me. And I relied heavily on my accountant to, number one, tell me what it was worth, to number two, give me cost estimates for completing the project, and then number three, to help me make sure I got a good deal on financing. And he kind of failed on all three of those. And so number one, I didn't do due diligence. I really just put way too much trust in this individual. And so that, in my book, I really talk about how it doesn't matter who your professional is, you've got to do your own homework. And if you're going to spend a bunch of money, you better become at least as good an expert as you can in as short a time as possible, or else you better pass on that deal. And so that was one lesson I learned, don't just depend on other people. And so I bought it at too high of a price. The cost estimates were way under what it ended up costing me to build out all the individual suites. And so not only did I pay too much, but then it cost me more than I expected. Then I unfortunately got caught with bad timing. It was right before NAFTA hit, and I live in Southwest Virginia, and the whole textile industry. This area is big in tobacco and textiles and furniture, and 2 out of 3 of those went to Mexico, and the third one, tobacco. You kind of know what's happened on that front. So we went from a very thriving economy to virtually no economy overnight. So I was left with a big strip center that I was paying the mortgage on, basically out of pocket for the most part, and we had over in our city, we had over 50% of the commercial retail space was empty. And so it ended up being a pretty tough situation. I still have the building. I still have some tenants. It's still not full, but down the road, if I can get it full, I can guarantee you the very first thing I will do is sell it, and I will move every last time into multifamily properties.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know a lot of investors these days are a little hesitant on retail just because what e-commerce has done to brick and mortar stores, and I always think at the end of the day, people have to have somewhere to live. So that's what really draws me personally to residential. But it's good that you've kind of stuck it out and turned a bad deal into something still manageable. And I'm sure you've learned from a lot of that.
Yeah, if you buy a 100-unit multifamily property, or you buy a strip center of the size that I have, and those might be in the same cost arena.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose 10% of your tenants, if you lose 10 tenants out of a 100 building, you're at 90% occupancy. If you lose 10 tenants out of your strip center, you have no occupancy.
Yeah.
I can tell you that it's a big difference between the two, and keeping your tenants in there is very difficult in that retail space, unless, I can foresee if you're in a big city on a really great corner, or, there's just tremendous location, then, that may be a different situation. But like you just said, they're expecting, retail is going to continue to struggle for the foreseeable future because of e-commerce.
Yeah, right. So on that deal, you said you leaned pretty heavily on your accountant, and it's a tall order for an accountant to be, tasked with doing the due diligence and all those things that you were leaning on that person for. So I'm sure since you've probably built a more round team, and that team has probably helped you out with your newer deals, right?
Absolutely. We found people that specialize in each aspect of due diligence, as well as I've, taken on the responsibility to become, don't want to say an expert, but I'm working on it. I'm definitely, my educational process has had a huge ramp up. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like I'm going to assume your worst deal. So could you talk about one of your better deals you've had in the past?
Well, we've done my partner and I have done some single family homes, and those have worked out probably just as a home run. And we've done some flips that have been really, really good. And we've also done some flips that have been really, really tough. You can, and my experience has just been, it goes all over the place, because when you're buying a single family home, you sometimes get good things get dropped in your lap, or some bad things get dropped in your lap. And so, we did one just this past, it was in October of last year, and we bought a house in the city that's close to us, and we were able to turn that thing in, I guess, about 3.5 months. There was about a $45,000 profit made, and there was only about $25,000 put into it. And it was one of those things where it was bought at the right time. Somebody was in trouble. They needed to get out of it quick. They had not abused the property. They had kept it nice. It was one of those ones where you just don't know until you get the doors open and you get inside. But we did very, very well on that, and it was a very short process, and it didn't take a lot of labor. And so that was kind of one of those being in the right place at the right time. So as far as a percentage wise, that's probably been the best one we've done just to date. So that one we really liked. And if we could do them all like that, we wouldn't fool with anything else. But as you know, they don't all work that easily. So,
right. So what does your investment criteria look like these days? Are you focusing mostly on multifamily? Are you still dabbling in single families as well? Or
Yeah, we've kind of stopped the single family just because our focus has really shifted to multifamily, and our company Wellings Capital has put together an investor group, and so we are very diligently looking for properties that are in the large and growing markets. We're looking primarily in the South and Southeast, the Dallas, pretty much almost any town in Texas, just because of the way that the state is growing and how fast we look at different things like job creation for a city. We look at net migration. We look at schools. We look at crime. We look at just I guess we've got about a 27-point checklist, and so we'll dial in first of all a city. And after we find a city that we really like, we'll put that on our list, and then we'll look at a sub-market within that city. And once we have the sub-market dialed in, then we look at individual assets. And what we really are looking for is we're looking for either C+ to B-, maybe even a B property that basically needs a facelift, that has really great bones, that hopefully, the structural things are all in good shape. Hopefully the heavy lifting like exteriors or the roof has been recently done, but it really needs a facelift on the interiors. And so we're looking for a property that has a lot of value add aspects to it, where we can go in and we can take the interiors and we can put in some new cabinets, put in some doors on cabinets, repaint the boxes, put in countertops, maybe get a solid surface, put in vinyl plank flooring, put in new fixtures, put in new lighting. And from that point, then we can, when we start to look, and we do this ahead of time, but we look at what the competition, the comps and that are close to this property. We look at the comp set to see what their values are, what they're renting for. And then once we look at that, we decide, okay, will this property now support these upgrades? And if we can get, $50 bump in rent, or we can get a $75 bump in rent because the comps that have already been upgraded are doing that, then that's a target for us. We also look at things like, there's a lot of great tools online, things like there's a program called Neighborhood Scout that you can look at, and it will tell you all kinds of great things about the neighborhood. Like, it'll tell you how the schools rank. It'll tell you what crimes happen. It'll tell you where the crimes happen. It'll tell you if it's breaking and entry, if it's just vandalism, if it's property crime, or if it's violent crime, personal crime. And so you can look at all these different factors. You can look at another one called Walk Score. Walk Score will tell you what the community around the property is like, as far as what you can walk to, what kind of amenities are there. So we'll look for things like that around a B or B- property, and then we're looking to, right this minute, we're looking from 100 to 140 doors, and that's kind of our target. And the competition is incredibly fierce right now, Jacob. You probably know this, but we've put bids on. We've been in best and final on a number of properties in the last 6 months, and we've been close. But I'll tell you what, people are willing to overpay for these properties right now, and our investor group would not be happy if we did that. So we're still looking, still searching right this minute. We actually won a property in Chattanooga 2.5 months ago, and we got all the way to the point we had our purchase sale agreement in place. We had placed our earnest money down and got to the property, and had some problems with the property itself, with some mold issues and standing water and some real bad stuff that we found on due diligence. So we ended up having to back out of that one. But anyway, we're looking for those types of properties. And I like to, for the new investor, think about finding an old Mustang that just is like an old Shelby Mustang that just needs paint and some interior work, and it's going to be, it runs pristine. You put a little bit of money into fixing up those cosmetics, and boom, that's value on that car just, doubled. Well, the same thing with these apartment complexes. You can find one that's got great bones, that structurally is in good shape, but just needs some cosmetics. And then you can start to bump the rents and provide a nicer place for people to live. It makes a great investment, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that's great. You're talking about forced appreciation to those easy value add opportunities of just cosmetic facelifts, your interior paints, flooring, things like that. All really good, into easy value add opportunities. You're
Yeah.
looking for things that don't have structural damage or need a new roof or new parking lots or extensive repairs. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
another.
they are.
So when you guys are looking at your demographics and economics of the market, you've kind of explained a couple resources you use, the Neighborhood Scout and the Walk Score. What are you guys using to look at economics of the market in terms of migrations, employment opportunities, things like that?
So there's a ton of them, and it really just depends on what your preference is, and it's all online. We can completely evaluate an area without ever getting out of our living room lazy boy. If you got a laptop, you can get online and you can look at government websites, you can look at statistics, and some colleges have different websites. But that's basically, we look at some of those things. We look at, we try to stay right on track or on top of articles from national publications, MFE, magazine, Zumper Rent Report, just some things of that nature. Some of them have a lot of fluff and some of them are really hardcore data. And so it really just depends on what you would want to look at yourself. We use a combination of a little bit of both. We try to filter through a lot of information, a lot of those different things, and look at what are the economies of the city. Is the city investing in itself? What kind of fiber does the city have? Have they brought in a high-speed internet situation where we know that a lot of E-type companies are going to come there? Is that going to drive growth? What's the social culture like there? What's the entertainment culture like there? Are millennials going to want to come? You look to see what attracts renters, and jobs and great places to live attract renters. So those are the two main things we look at. And then of course we look at things like schools and crime and all those things as well. But we really do start off with the jobs and net migration and some of those things. And again, they're on government websites. There's just handfuls of those things that you can use.
Yeah, great. Good points. One of the things I found interesting you said is looking at fiber internet. It's a pretty cool factor, leading indicator, if you will, of what the city is investing in developing. So cool.
Yeah. That was one of the things that attracted us to Chattanooga. Just about 4 or 5 years ago, they put in what at the time, and I don't think it is now, but I think it was the single fastest fiber system in the country at the time. And now there's several cities that have added that, but that's really fueled some of their growth. They attracted the big VW manufacturing plant with their national headquarters, and it was partially because of the investment they made in the infrastructure. And so, start looking at some of those things, you get a feel for the city and the area, and how the folks that are driving the growth in the city, how progressive they are. And I think that bodes very well for an investment for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, right. Really good points. So you and your partners at Wellings Capital are looking for new acquisitions, 100 to 140 units you mentioned, Class C plus, B minus type properties with, just minor facelifts that are really needed. What are your future goals in terms of expansion of your portfolio?
Yeah. So one of our partners, Wade Myers, is he is an entrepreneur extraordinaire. He's the CEO of 12 different companies. He has one of the fastest growing property management companies in the U.S. And he really kind of drives our vision. But our vision for the long term is most likely to go to 4 or 5 properties, 6 or 7 properties, and then our long term goals are really to set up a fund where people can come in and they can, if they want to invest a couple $100,000, they can spread it out over 5 or 6 or 7 properties and give a fund like that. It really does spread risk across a large geographic area. And so that's kind of our long-term goal. Both Paul and I, Paul's my other partner, we're very, motivated by some social ideas with regards to business helping to, I guess the term is social entrepreneurship is really what I was grasping for, but is taking and being responsible corporate citizens, and not only being responsible corporate citizens, but investing in things we're passionate about. And we're passionate about human trafficking, and we're passionate about orphans. I've adopted 8 children myself. we adopted a sibling group of 7 Russian orphans, and then
Wow.
we've adopted another little guy now. Yeah, at the time it was, we were told by the guys at the embassy it was the largest Russian adoption in U.S. history. So not that we did it for that reason. It was all one family, and they were getting ready to split that family up and send them to 3 different countries. And so we had 2 of our own kids, 2 biologicals at the time. So it's a long story, but we got these guys, we got them here, we got them raised now, and they're all out on their own, and they're all doing pretty well. So it's something we're just really passionate about, and this is a business that will spin off a great deal of profits if done well, and if managed properly. And so we hope to, our long-term goals are to be the Tom Shoes or the Mercy Water of multifamily investing and multifamily properties. So that's our long-term goals.
Yeah, I think those reasons why you have Brian are really fantastic. You said this business is going to spin off a lot of money if you do it right, and you guys are going to have plenty of success. And having that driver, that reason why behind you, is really going to keep that fire lit under you guys and drive you to do that much more. And you guys are already doing a lot of good in the world. I know you guys are very involved in helping human trafficking and through your adoptions and things like that. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I really applaud you guys.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's the other thing about this is a business where I'm at an age now where I want to be involved in things where there doesn't have to be any losers, and multifamily investing is so lucrative for everybody in the ecosystem can win. In other words, the seller can get a good profit for his property. The broker makes income when the property sells. The people that do the financing, the banks, will make a good income from when the debts are paid. The new owners will do well when they take a property and they turn it around and they do the cosmetic facelift and they begin to lift rents. The investors make good money because these properties just produce great income, and then even the tenants win because they get a nicer place to live, and investors are motivated to put their money there because of tax breaks and different things. And so it's just a win-win all the way around, and that's something else that attracted me to this. So another reason I'm really pretty excited about the multifamily space.
Yeah, what a phenomenal business model. I mean, where else can you get all of those wins?
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool.
All right, Brian, so wrapping up here, we've got a lightning round, just a series of questions. We'll just fire them at you, and you just answer from the hip. How's that sound?
Sounds good. There's no electric shock involved, right?
No.
Okay. All right, great.
Okay, so what was your biggest hurdle getting started in real estate investing, and how'd you overcome it?
My biggest hurdle was it was just an information gap initially. And so I got involved with a group that actually has a course that they teach. It's a year-long course on multifamily investing. And that was just seeking out professionals in the field and really, helping to hurry along my education was probably the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, okay. Do you have a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Personal habit. I guess I'm pretty stick-to-itive. I don't like to lose at anything, and so I'm going to stick with the process until I get it right. And so I think not taking no for an answer, and being willing to stick with something in the long run. I think that's probably one of my better attributes.
Yeah, phenomenal. Do you have an online resource that you find valuable? I know you've mentioned several throughout the show, but
yeah, those are all probably some of the best that we look at. The Multifamily Executive magazine is not. It's online, but it's also the hard. I'm kind of old school. I like the hard copy as well. So that's a great resource as well. So I use that one.
And how about you mentioned an online mentoring or coaching program? Is that right? Do you have something you'd recommend there?
Yeah. The company is Multifamily Partners, and they're out of Richmond, Virginia. And Chad Doty is one of the lead guys there. Dan and Chad own that, and it is like I said, a year-long process. It's not cheap. It's fairly expensive, but they take you to their properties. They take you through a training program where you will learn everything that you need to know to start your own business. You can syndicate real estate deals after you're done going through that. that process, and they take you multiple times. You have on sites, and then you have where you actually go to a site, and they will train you for 3 days, and then you also have a lot of homework at home, and then they have all kinds of resources as far as their website and deals they've done, and those guys are really our mentors. So I love giving them a shout out.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so what book would you recommend to listeners and why?
Well, of course, being self-serving, I'd have to recommend my book when it comes out. But I will say, my partner Paul has written a book, and it's already on Amazon, and it's called The Perfect Investment. And so his is a great book on multifamily investing. It's targeted at just kind of a general group, and mine's a little more focused on the professionals, but his is a little more general, but definitely his is available as we speak, both electronically and paperback copies. So that one's a good one too. Yeah,
so that's The Perfect Investment by Paul Moore. And then, of course, we have your book to be coming up called Done, The Professional's Guide to Double-Digit Returns, Multi-Generational Wealth, and Worry-Free Retirement, which we'll link both of those in the show notes. And we certainly look forward to yours coming out.
Great.
Okay, one last question. If you were to give advice to your 20-year-old self to get started in real estate investing, what would it be?
Well, I have a 22-year-old son. I just told him this the other day, and it was don't wait. Do not wait to get involved in real estate. If I knew back then, what I know today, if I'd spent those years working at real estate as hard as I've worked at becoming a physician and going through all that I've gone through, I'd be a multi-millionaire. And so the biggest thing is get started, whether it's single family, whether it's just a duplex, whether it's a quad, a triplex, 100 units, whatever it may be. Get started, begin to learn the business, know you're going to make some mistakes. Don't be afraid of mistakes, because that's how you learn. And just keep pushing, because if you do it right, you get good mentors, and you're honest and you work hard, it's going to pay off in the end by far. There's no doubt about that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's people who even got extremely early starts. I'm a relatively young guy, and I think anybody wishes they would have started sooner. So,
absolutely, I wish I had to.
All right, Brian, well, wrapping up, we certainly appreciate your time on the show today. Do you have any parting piece of guidance or advice you'd like to leave with our audience?
I think that was, you just ask it. Don't wait and get started now. So jump into real estate as quick as you can.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Well, we'll link your website and your podcast and book in the show notes. And we thank you for your time, and can't wait to talk to you next time.
Great. Thanks for the invite, Jacob.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Brian.
Bye-bye.
All right. That wraps up our episode today with Dr. Brian Robbins. I hope you're getting value out of this show, and I really hope you're enjoying it so far. If you are, please leave me a rating and review in iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, or TuneIn Radio. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to just hear something specific or have a real estate question, I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me at info@jacobayers.com or find me on my site at www.jacobayers.com or connect with me on Facebook at The Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom Podcast. Till next week, signing off, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.